As we go through life, most of us try so hard to avoid the inevitable, fear. But there are a few brave souls that seek only fear, like those of you who clicked this video. For that, I thank you. But by the end, you may not thank me. So lock your doors, bar your windows, turn out the lights, and prepare for The Bookshelf by The Shadow. Now relax. This won't hurt too much. The bookshelf had been in the exact same spot throughout the last 50-ish years, remaining like a sentinel on duty, protecting the lives of those that dwelled within the area it protected. Though the house had seen many tenants come and go, and everything was moved and arranged according to those tenants' preferences, the bookshelf itself never moved. It was crammed with all sorts of various forms of literature, fiction, non-fiction, biographies, etc. The collection of books had grown over the years, and with each new tenant, the shelves continued to swell with content that mysteriously stayed behind when they vacated. Now the shelves and their contents sat with a thick layer of dust coating every free surface, dulling the color and fading the words on each book with malicious intent. The house had sat empty for the last few months, as often happened during the transition periods, but the average transition only lasted a week or so, before new inhabitants would break the cloying silence that now filled the house. The silence was momentarily interrupted about a week after the previous occupants had vacated, as the house was full of police and detectives focused on the disappearances that all seemed to revolve around this place. They did a full sweep of everything, and after finding nothing, eventually left, allowing silence to take up residence once more. A creak from upstairs could be heard in the vacuum of the empty house, and then another, much louder creak echoed as the trapdoor ladder swung down, seemingly coming from nowhere. A disheveled-looking man slowly descended the ladder. He had no name, or at least, no one had spoken it in so long that it was lost to the ages. The man wandered slowly from room to room, taking in everything. The last time he had seen this place was when he was a young boy, and things had changed so much since then, he couldn't help but shed a tear at the sense of loss, the longing for the past burning in every cell of his body. He ambled slowly down the flight of stairs, taking care not to fall, as he was quite frail from years of confinement to the attic. He entered the living room and was knocked over immediately by the shaft of light penetrating from a gap in the curtains. He hadn't seen any real source of light for 50 or more years, and the shock of it to his system caused his legs to give out. He lay, rooted to the spot, for a few moments in pure agony as his unadjusted eyes burned from the sudden brightness. When the pain had subsided enough, he blinked his eyes to clear them, and that's when he noticed the bookshelf. His mouth hung open and his eyes widened. The sight before him was marvelous, the only semblance of sanity left in this house. A feeling of warmth and comfort enveloped his body, and he began to smile for the first time in decades, wincing slightly from the pain of his dry, cracked lips as they split. The man removed his tattered shirt and began to dust every surface of the bookshelf and all of its contents, bringing them to their original glory and luster. For a moment, the last 50 years evaporated, and suddenly he was a child again, his mother calling to him from the kitchen, informing him that breakfast was ready. Running on shaky legs, the man rushed into the kitchen. Caught up in the moment of ecstasy, he didn't remember how much the house had changed since he was a child, and as he ran through the doorway to the kitchen, something stopped him, causing him to double over and fall face first into the counter. He let out a bellow of pain and collapsed to the floor. He eventually found it in himself to stand again, and that's when he saw the object that wouldn't yield to his excitement. There was a kitchen island. The man turned around, all traces of happiness chased away by the jolt of reality he had just experienced, and walked dejectedly back towards the living room, this time being more mindful of his surroundings. The bookshelf came back into view, and the man smiled again as he saw how nice it looked, clean and dust-free. He stood in front of it and looked through the titles of each book. Many had been added, as so much time had passed, but the originals were still there, nestled cozily in with the rest. Things seemed to be complete now. The man reached out hesitantly and gingerly grabbed his favorite book, Poe's The Raven. An electric jolt ran through him as he made contact with the book, causing goosebumps to break out all over his body. He began to remove the book from its position, and that's when the shelf started to move. There was a grinding from within the wall, and a loud creaking from the shelf itself. For the last time it had moved, There was hardly any extra weight to it. A foul, decaying odor began to seep out when the first few inches of darkness were exposed. The man didn't notice it, though. The room that lay concealed behind the bookshelf had been his home for the last 50 years, ever since he had killed his entire family and hid their lifeless corpses in there. In the far back corner of the attic, right above where the living room was, there was a hidden hatch that, when open, revealed a tight spiral staircase which was the only other way into this room, besides the bookshelf. The man had built it himself as he realized that entering the room through the bookshelf would prove too much of a problem. The man looked around the room. There were countless remains, all in various stages of decomposition, from only a few months' worth of to bones that were nearly dust. The most recent remains were nearly picked clean. The man was so hungry. He stepped back out of the room and put the raven back in its original position, and the bookshelf swung back into place, back to the way it had sat for 50 years. The man climbed the stairs, climbed the ladder back up to the attic, closed the trap door, and waited for the next tenants to arrive.